welcome to Bio 111. Today we are going to talk about the research project part 2 and kind of what that looks like for you guys. So we're going to start by just going over the basics of what this research project is, what you guys are expected to do for this, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how you guys can actually accomplish that. So to start with, this research project part 2, essentially what this is an annotated bibliography. So some of you might be familiar with how to do those from your time in high school or even middle school for some of you. But basically what you're doing here is in part 1, you've already picked your topic and you've already written an explanation of what your previous knowledge is on this topic. So you would have written down all of your existing knowledge on that topic and what your current opinion is. And so for this part, this is the research section of this research project. So for this section, you guys are going to be talking about, or you're basically going to be doing your research. So the way that's going to work is we have these summary sheets, which you can see here. You can also find this on Blackboard for you guys. It's posted there. And basically what this is this is where you're going to be doing your research project. So this summary sheet has 10 different rows, which you can see there. And each row will correspond to one article. So you guys are going to be finding a total of 10 articles relating to your topic. 5 of them are going to be arguing in favor of your topic, and the other 5 are going to be arguing against it. So let's say that your topic is, for instance, fracking, right? This is not a topic you guys have the ability to choose, but it's just an example of a topic that might exist for this project. If your topic is fracking, then maybe 5 of your articles are going to argue for why fracking is a beneficial thing, right? How it's going to be useful for the economy, all that kind of stuff. And then the other 5 articles would be the con side. So in this example, the con side of fracking might be something like, what environmental impacts could it have? Does it have a negative impact on us or on animals, etc.? So again, 5 of your articles will be arguing for the pro side, 5 will be arguing for the con side. Now, once you've chosen an article, you're going to read it, make sure that it lines up with what you want to be talking about, and then you're going to list it in this chart. So you can see here we've got the name of the article all the way on the left, then we've got the authors, and you will need to list every author's name. You're going to want to make sure that you are being thorough in terms of making sure that you're finding all of the authors, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in just a second. You're also going to be listing the type of article. So the type of article being whether it's a journal article, whether it came from a book, or if it's a personal interview. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on as well. For most of you, it's going to be a journal article. I'm fairly certain that 99% of you are going to use all journal articles for this project. You do also have the option of using a book or a personal interview. But that's a little bit rarer, so I'm expecting that for most of you, it's typically just going to be journal articles. The next column is, what database did you find that article? Now, this is important. The database that you guys are going to be, or the collection of databases that you guys are going to be using comes from the JCC library. You're going to be using JCC library to search for databases, and that's where you're going to find all of your articles. Now, JCC library itself is not a database. So I do not want to see you guys listing JCC library under the database where you found the article. JCC library itself is not a database, it just has access to multiple different databases. For you guys, what you're most likely going to see for which database is going to be either ProQuest or Gale OneFile. There are a couple of other databases that you might use, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well, but for the most part, it's going to be either ProQuest or Gale OneFile. Those are the 2 main databases that most of the articles will come from. Then we have the summary section. And in the summary section, this is the most important part. This is the part where you're actually going to talk about what is the article about, and how can you use it in your final research project. So an important thing about the summary is that it's not the same as an abstract. Now, an abstract is just It's given by the authors of the article, and it's basically a summary of what the article's about, what results did they find, and what do those results mean for the future. That's not what you guys are doing. You guys are going to be writing in your own words your own summary of this article, and you're going to include in that summary why this article is useful for you in your research project. So I've written sort of an example here, and these slides are also posted to Blackboard, so you guys can study that if you need some information on how this summary should be worded. And then lastly, you've got your APA citation. And the APA citation does need to match APA 7th edition, and you guys have a lot of places you can go to try to figure out how best to format that. You can check the OWL Purdue website that has a very good formatting technique for APA citations. The JCC library does have built-in citation checkers as well, but I would use those with a grain of salt because they do tend to be a little bit incorrect from time to time. So you can use that as a starting point, but then you're going to want to double check it with OWL Purdue and make sure that everything lines up exactly correctly. Again, I am a bit of a stickler for APA citations. Before I worked here, my job was checking for APA citations. So if you are not sure whether your APA citation is 100% correct, you can always show it to me and I can double check it for you. That's something that I'm very happy to do. So just you have a lot of resources at your disposal to make sure that those citations are correct. So that's basically what this project looks like. You're going to be doing that for 10 different sources, and again, 5 of them need to be pro, and 5 of them need to be con. Now, sometimes you'll have an article that mentions both the pro and the con side of a particular topic. You can still use those articles, but for the purposes of this part, the research project part 2, you will need to pick one of those sides for that article to represent. And the reason we do that is because we still want you to have 10 different sources. So even if you have one source that argues for both the pro and the con side, you can only list it for one of those sides so that you still have 10 total sources. Now, these sources do have to be 5 years old at the very oldest. So typically, you're looking for resources that are very new. We want articles that are as up-to-date as possible, so the oldest they could possibly be is 5 years. So keep that in mind as you guys are searching, and I'll show you in a minute how to actually filter for that so that the only articles you're going to see are the ones from 5 years or more recently. They also need to be peer-reviewed. And that means that they need to be checked by other scientists. And so I'll show you guys how to filter for that as well so that you're only getting articles that are peer-reviewed. Now, the other thing is they all need to come from JCC Library. So I don't want you guys to be using Google Scholar for this. Everything should be from the JCC Library databases. And again, in a minute, I will show you guys how to navigate those. Now, you can use journal articles. You can also use books if you want to. Those books can come from JCC Library itself. Or you could use a personal interview. Now, those personal interviews, they're relatively rare because they have to happen with an expert in the field. So you should not be interviewing your mom about this. You should be interviewing somebody who is an expert. So for instance, if your topic is, let's say, GMOs, genetically modified organisms, and let's say your mom happens to have a doctorate in genomics, she would be a good person to interview. But if your mom's a kindergarten teacher, not so much. So your interview really does need to be with an expert, which usually doesn't happen. It's relatively rare that you guys will know an expert in the field that you've chosen. But if you do know somebody, then definitely let me know because there is a specific format that you need to follow when you are conducting personal interviews. So if that's something that you have the ability to do, if you know someone who is an expert in your field, then you can go ahead and email me and we can set something up where you can talk to a library expert who can explain to you how to do that personal interview. But for the most part, that doesn't typically happen. You should not be using any published interviews. So if you find a source that's just an interview with someone, that doesn't count as something for this particular project. As I mentioned, all of your articles need to come from the JCC Library databases, so don't use Google Scholar, don't use the internet, and definitely make sure that you are focusing on JCC Library. Now, one of the particular things that you can use in JCC Library is called Credo reference, and that's really good for background information. It's very similar to Wikipedia. It can give you some background information on your topic, but it is not scholarly and peer-reviewed, so you should not be using articles directly from Credo reference. This project is due on February 20th, or it was originally. Since you guys ended up having a bit of a snow day, that is going to be pushed to February 27th, so you guys get an extra week to work on this. Now, when you are trying to find the database that your article came from, you'll notice that it is up in the top left of your screen. So here I've got two screenshots, one from an article that's from ProQuest and one that's an article from Gale OneFile. And you can see that I've circled the database title up in the top left corner, so that's where you're going to be able to see that database when you're trying to locate it. So again, your database is not JCC Library. It's usually going to be either ProQuest or Gale OneFile, but there are a few other databases that it could be as well. You're just going to want to check that top left corner. That should tell you what database you're currently searching in. And then I just have a little bit of a overview of APA citations. So I'm not going to go over everything you have to do in an APA citation. You should be able to get that information from reading this slide or from going to OWL Purdue for more help. But make sure that when you are formatting your citations that you're being careful to include all of the authors. Sometimes it looks like you've included all of the authors, but there are actually a few that you've missed. So if you look at this picture that I have here, this picture is of a ProQuest article, and you can see the title of the article there, and then below the title, those linked names, those are the names of the authors. Now you'll notice that I've circled that little et al. Next to the authors' names. If you see an et al., that means that you are not looking at the full list of authors. You are looking at the first few authors, but you're not looking at that full list. And so for this project, you guys will need to have a complete list of authors. So if you see an et al., make sure that you click that, and that should take you to the full list of the authors of that particular study. So just make sure that you guys are keeping that in mind, because if you don't have your full list of authors, you will lose a couple of points on this, and I think that that's not a good way to lose points, because it's so easy to make sure that you have all of those authors there. All right, and that is it for the overview of this project. So now I'm going to show you guys a little bit about how to search on the JCC databases so that you guys can get started on this project. All right. So if we head to the JCC, so here is our JCC website, right? So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to just search here, and we're going to type in library. So when we search for library in that little box, we are going to see in a second, this is the library and tutoring services link. So we're going to click that. We're going to wait for it to load. We're going to close all the pop-ups. And now we see this is our library website. So you're going to scroll down to where it says complete your research, and you're going to click on other library resources. When you do that, it opens up this new tab. Now this is the Find It All search bar. So this is going to be your main place where you're going to be searching for your articles. So you can just type in whatever your topic happens to be. So I'm going to use the fracking example because it's not one of your topics. So we search for that, and once it loads, we see these are all of the articles that we found throughout all of JCC's databases, and these are all focused on fracking. So you can see there are 85,000 results for this topic. Now, we want to make sure that we are following the guidelines of this project, so we're going to use some filters. And so what we're going to do is we are going to go up in the top corner to where it says Options. We're going to click that. And now we are in the advanced search. So now from here, we can actually narrow it down to the topics that you guys are supposed to be focusing on. So first of all, we know that our publication date has to be within the past 5 years. So we can click on this little 5 years button, and that will apply that filter. So once we've applied that filter, that means that all of our results here are going to be newer than 5 years. Now, the other thing we want is for our searches to be scholarly and peer-reviewed, right? We need all of our results to be scholarly and peer-reviewed, so we're going to click that as well. Now, the next thing we're actually going to click is full text online. And basically what that means is this is going to actually make sure that you can read all the articles that you're finding. Because if you don't click that option, then you might find an article on JCC Library that you don't actually have the ability to read. Because basically JCC Library, their job is just to let you know that something exists. So if JCC Library has a record of an article that's been published, it will tell you about it, but it might not necessarily have the ability to get it for you. So that's why we press full text online, because that means that we are limiting our results to only the articles that we actually have access to. So once we've got all of those clicked, we can go ahead and press search again. And we're gonna let it load, and now we see that our results are much, much fewer, right? There's only 298 results now instead of the original 85,000. So that's gonna make it a little bit easier for us to sort through these. And from here, we can just go ahead and start clicking articles, see if there's anything here that's gonna be useful to us. Now, if we wanna get even more specific, we can also edit our search. We can search for something other than fracking, or we can search for something in addition to fracking, right? So let's say that I want to focus on just fracking in the US. I can go ahead and type and that's going to mean that now I'm searching for fracking and something else. So let's say I search for United States. So we see that when I do that, it's going to narrow my search down even further. So now I've gone from about 280 all the way down to 120, because here, in adding that and, I have now limited my results. So now I'm only seeing results that include fracking and include the term United States. So that's going to narrow me down. It's going to help me to get more specific about what I'm looking for, right? So if I'm looking for a pro article on fracking, I might type maybe benefits, right? And see what happens there. And so now we can see this looks like something on politics about how fracking might be beneficial, so on and so forth, right? And then if I'm looking for articles that are against fracking, maybe I'll put environment, right? To kind of look at the environmental impacts of this. And we see that now we have quite a few articles on that as well. So this is just basically how you can search for your articles when you are on the JCC library. And this should allow you to find those 10 articles relatively easily. Now, again, once you've found them, you have to read them and then complete those summary sheets on those 10 articles. And definitely reach out to either me or the library if you guys are having any issues figuring out how to navigate this website or figuring out what you need to do for this project. I am very familiar with this project, and so are the librarians, so they would be happy to assist you if you are running into any sort of issues. And again, I will be happy to assist you as well, so either reach out to me or the library or both if you're having any issues with this project. And again, your final research project part 2 will be due on the 27th. There is a Dropbox on Blackboard for you guys to submit it to. So with that, I hope that this has helped you guys to understand how this project works. I've also posted a few other videos to Blackboard for you guys if you need more information on how to use the JCC library. And I hope everybody enjoys their snow day. Have a great day, guys.